You want to release all the water here. We're going to talk a lot about that later today. You want to release all this water.
Welcome to a space where healthy food not only makes you feel good, it warms your heart and soul with love. Learn how to turn local organic produce into mouth-watering meals that nourish your body and soul. This is the art of cooking from the heart.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure to see you all again. And before we get started, I would like to tell you a little bit about Cooking from the Heart and Giving Tree Cafe and Sui Vera and how we all kind of got to know each other and why we're intermingling in this delightful way. They're obviously a group that does everything from the heart, and they are heart-focused every moment of every day. And we do cooking from the heart at Giving Tree Cafe, and I'd like to say that we're also heart-centered all day long, and it's part of our lifestyle, so that cooking this way isn't really out of the ordinary for us. It's just our lifestyle. And that's part of what we'd like to bring to all of you watching this and all of you here today, of how we can combine our highest nature with every aspect of what we're doing in our lives, including the food that we prepare, which is obviously a very important part of who we are and what we do. So cooking from the heart is very meaningful for me. What we do here in the restaurant every day before we start our shift is we just take a second and let loose of anything that might be holding us back, any old baggage. Focus on the love that's in our heart right now. I focus on the love that I have for my family and my friends and you all. And I focus on the love that I share with Mother Earth and her abundance that she shares with us. And once that love is in my heart, I allow that love to expand out into every cell of my body and then out into my aura, so that everything I'm touching is imbued with this very fine, high vibrational energy. And knowing that I'm a conduit for source, I don't do anything else. In other words, I don't focus energy into things and I don't play with it at all. I just allow it to be. However, in this state, I find that I'm also much more able to hear, feel, see what it is that nature would like me to do. And you can actually, I'm sure most of you know this, when you go to the grocery store and you see the pineapples and you pick up one and pick up a second one, part of what you're doing isn't intellectually, it's seeing how it feels to you and which one works for you. And actually that pineapple is telling you, I'm the greatest pineapple here, but I'm not really right for your recipe that you're going to be making today. Put me down. There's my buddy over there. He's the one that you want. And they literally will do that. So we're doing the same thing here. It doesn't stop just in the grocery store. We do it here as well. And so sometimes I've got an idea for a dish, and then I'll stop and go, okay, this isn't going to be a spicy Asian barbecue sauce. It's going to be more of a sweeter barbecue sauce, or whatever it wants. Does that make sense? More than anything, the products are only asking us to respect them and respect the earth. And so I also do a little thing, I hope this isn't too much, where I am the representative for the human kingdom, and I take a step into the mycelium kingdom, and I bring forth the mushrooms, and I allow the human kingdom and the mycelium kingdom just to get to know each other. We give each other a hug, maybe we'll dance, maybe we'll laugh and play, and then I'll go back to work. And I can do all that in a split second, so it's not like it takes a long time, but we're connected that way. And that's more of a native way of doing things, and it's a beautiful process of honoring who we are as human beings and who they are. And I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of the human beings on the planet aren't as quote awake to this yet. And so they're the ones that are stampeding through the forest and maybe cutting it down and maybe not respecting some of the plant life and some of the mineral life and some of the animal life that's on the planet. So I think it's up to us to be good stewards and say, look, we are the human kingdom. We're really the ones that are representing here, and we're making amends, and we're coming together with you now. And then I go about my recipe. Does that make sense? There's one more thing I wanted to say quickly, and I haven't really said this much the first episodes that we did, but I've been encouraged to do this, and that is that there's I think a really good reason for you all to be here right now. Many good reasons probably, but the ones I want to focus on is what we're doing here is very different and quite unique. What we are is a 100% organic, gluten-free, soy-free vegan restaurant, and as such, we've been called many things, including healthiest restaurant in America. So you can go on YouTube and get a lot of recipes from different places and different people, but think about it. If you're into health, and I'm guessing all of you are on some level, then doesn't it make sense to get your information from somebody who's been doing this a while and somebody who's recognized as being very healthy, as opposed to somebody, I'm sure there's a lot of YouTubers that got millions and millions of followers that are really great at making YouTube, and I love those people and they're wonderful. However, they're not running the healthiest restaurant in America, and we are here. There's another reason that you want to be here, and that is that I've been doing this for 49 years, and so I don't know everything, believe me, I'm still learning a lot. But I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've been through this a lot, and by watching this, you'll be able to circumvent a lot of those mistakes I've made. Does that make sense? We can get you up to speed really quickly here. And I love that you're all here. Thank you very much. It really completely explodes my heart open that you're all watching this right now. We're going to be working with mycelium and mushrooms today, and this might look strange to some people, but I think most of the people here go, oh yeah, I work with these things all the time, and these are known to me. But most of us in America know crimini mushrooms and white button mushrooms and little else. As a matter of fact, when you go into restaurants, I get really angry when they do this. They say that they're going to give you like a wild mushroom, fill in the blank, and then they give you crimini mushrooms. They're not wild, and they're cultivated, and they're boring. They're tasty and they're wonderful, but there's not a lot to them. So these mushrooms, to me, are very exciting for a couple of reasons. One is they're rare and different, but more than that, they have a medicinal value. Can I say that? Now, we think food is medicine and medicine is food, and I'm not diagnosing and I'm not treating and I'm not making any recommendations for health. However, all of these have been known to produce amazing benefits health-wise. We're going to be talking about the one in the center here is the lion's mane mushroom. It's one of my favorite mushrooms, and doctors are using this now to slow down and stop and reverse dementia. It's pretty amazing. They're using this to reverse Alzheimer's, which for even 10 years ago, they thought that was impossible and could never happen. I'm really excited about that. It's a great immune booster as well, and has other properties as well, but it's regrowing brain cells and regrowing your brain stem cells and your nerve cells. It's really quite remarkable. We're going to be dealing with some oyster mushrooms today, and it's probably the one I use the most often. We're going to be having a lot of fun with it later. Oyster mushrooms as well, great for digestion, great for memory as well, great for boosting the immune system. And we're going to be doing miyatake as well. And these miyatake, you might look at these and go, these look different than the miyatake I'm used to. And it's interesting to see this, that mushrooms are like apples. Like if you showed somebody an apple and they go, that's not an apple, I'm used to an apple being red and a different shape. And you go, no, this is a Granny Smith, or this is a pink lady. And mushrooms are like that too. So it's a miyatake mushroom. It might look a little different than you're used to. As a matter of fact, a lot of miyatakes look more like this oyster mushroom than this does. But what these are is they've taken the petals and they're more stuck together. And this miyatake is great for steaks. Is better for steaks, which is what we're going to be doing later. So that's why we're using that one today. So let's get started. And I'm going to get started with portobello mushrooms, which aren't even here right now, but they're right over here. This is what you're used to looking at in the store. And the reason I'm doing this today is I see a lot of people cooking these and they don't come out great. And I even see a lot of restaurants cooking these and they don't come out great. So I've already washed these and I've wrapped them up again. But I want to show you what most restaurants do, and then I want to show you what we do, which is another reason that you should be here. All of these recipes that we're doing here, I use in the restaurant. And that's a good thing to know, because sometimes when I go on YouTube and somebody says, hey, you got to look at this recipe, they're doing some really cool things. I look at the recipe, and sometimes they're fabulous, don't get me wrong. I'm not really highly critical, but for the sake of this, I want to point out a couple of things that I notice. Sometimes I see people doing recipes, and I can just tell by the ingredients that it's not going to taste very good. But they've got 1 million followers on YouTube, and people like what they do, and they're very cheerful and they're pleasant, and so people watch their videos. But a lot of times I see these recipes, and I can just tell by the way they're combining their spices, for instance, that it's not going to be great. But I see another thing too that's kind of interesting. I see some recipes that are fabulous recipes, and I look and go, okay, the cost of that is $45, that's $100, this is $60. The whole recipe is going to cost you $350 for 2 people. The meal is going to be $175. Now, if you want to do that, that's great. But sometimes I see these recipes on these videos that are crazy expensive. And so you look at the recipe, maybe unbeknownst to you, and you want to go and run out and get those ingredients, and you find that it's going to cost you a fortune. And so because we use these recipes in our restaurant and we sell these dishes for, say, $15 a plate, they're very cost effective. So you can make these at home and it's not going to cost you a fortune. Does that make sense? And they're tried and true, not just by me, but by literally hundreds of people a week. And so we've kind of fine-tuned it to a way that we know that this is going to taste good and it's going to be in your budget. So keep watching. We got a bunch of these. With portobellos, all you want to do is just pop off the bottoms here. I save these and make sauces out of these. If I'm making mushroom gravy, they're great for that. There's nothing wrong with them at all. With these, I'm gonna rinse these off a little bit. So with some mushrooms, this is important to know. With some mushrooms, they're in the mud, and so you have to clean them well. But part of the problem with that is if you clean a mushroom too much, you clean off all the flavor, because the flavor is in the spores. And so a lot of times we'll clean the spores off because they're little black dots and it looks like dirt. And so with mushrooms, you want to clean off the dirt, but you don't want to clean off the spores. Does that make sense? So with us, we'd rather clean off a little bit of the spores to make sure we're getting all the dirt off, right? Than not. But it's a balance. And so with mushrooms that grow like these, they actually grow in packets that you can buy these kits at home, by the way, and I'll tell you about that later. They grow in packets in sanitary conditions, and there's no dirt in these. I'm going to do the portobello mushroom 2 ways. I'm going to do it the way that you usually get it in restaurants. I'm going to do it my way, okay? Watch this. Now, what most places are going to do is focus on how pretty something is. But with mushrooms, you have to cook them to get the flavor. And so I want to cook these to the point where they seem like they're maybe even overcooked, but they're not. That's where you get the flavor from. As a matter of fact, with mushrooms, they're mostly water. And so with mushrooms, you want to make sure that the water kind of explodes out of it. And what I see in most places, they don't do that. They'll do this. They'll just get it warm on one side and get it warm on another. Yeah, everything we prepare here except for one thing, everything we serve here except for one thing, we prepare ourselves. So we bake bread every morning. Let's see how we're doing here. Not sure if you can see the difference here. You want to release all the water here. We're going to talk a lot about that later today. You want to release all this water. Can you hear that? Now you have to be careful when you do this because you're creating steam, and a steam burst could come in and could burn you. I've taken all the water out of it. And so when that happens, you'll see there's an explosion that happens with the mushroom, and that's where all the flavor is, and also a lot of the medicinal value. So when somebody serves you a portobello like this, it's not going to taste very good. You're going to be able to see the difference here.
How do you know when it's done?
Actually, if it's blackened, it's done. So I could do this even a little bit more. I'm anxious to get back to the crew, but because it gets even a little bit better if it's a little darker than that. But see the black in there? That's where we want it to be. Isn't that beautiful? Wouldn't you love to eat that? It's amazing looking, right? It doesn't taste very good. Fooled you. You want to overcook it. You want to almost char it to get the flavors out. And you can see how flat it is? It's because the water has been reduced. It's been pushed out of it. And when that happens, it helps the mushroom explode with flavor and also its nutritional value. So this looks beautiful. I'm going to show you all. Everybody's got a plate, right? Lindsay, can you pass this around and see if everybody can get a bite? Just like take a tongs and give everybody a little piece of this. And then we're gonna do the same thing here. There may be some of you that prefer the first one. If you do, I won't be mad at you. You're not wrong. But there's definitely way more flavor here. And that's really the main thing that I wanted to tell you about cooking these mushrooms today. Regardless of which mushroom we use, you want to get to the point where it's actually a little overcooked, or it looks a little overcooked, but it's not. That's really where the flavors come from. They grew up in the same household, had the same parents, had the same education. The only thing that's different is I cooked it differently. They sat right next to each other, almost exactly the same size. And because I pressed it down when I was cooking it, which I'll show you all later, the water exploded out of it and it got more seared, more charred. Does that make sense?